Anne-Marie Quinn, Managing Director of All Occasions Group. Thank you for joining us in the Events on Air studio. 19 years ago, where did the decision come from for you to get into the events management business?
Well, I had a background in the meetings industry. I was previously worked at the Adelaide Convention Bureau and had spent 6 years there understanding meetings and promoting Adelaide as a destination to attract national and international conferences and events. And so I guess I used that knowledge of the industry and of how conferences work and of the suppliers and the hoteliers to establishing my own company. I had a small stint at a PR firm for about 6 months in between that, and then I basically commenced All Occasions back in December 98. So we're going to be 20 years pretty soon.
That's a bit of a leap of faith. No potential clients, so a lot of shoe leather basically knocking on doors?
Yeah, it was actually. It took us 6 months to secure our first account, and in that time it was me sort of going back to the drawing board, really, the 101 of sales and marketing, and establishing our strategy and our branding and positioning, and then just picking up the phone and doing the cold calling, trying to convince somebody that I was a sure bet and that they could give me their conference. So I had a couple of contacts, luckily, from my days at the Convention Bureau, and it was one of those people actually who was my first client and appointed me to manage his conference, which was the history of medicine. So, and I can't remember his name, but I remember the name of the conference. And it was quite an obscure topic, I guess, but that was our first actual conference that we organised.
And is that about getting a run on the board, really, in terms of being able to go to the next client and the one after, and building trust, basically, that you can deliver?
In this industry, obviously having a track record is pretty critical, and having something tangible to put in front of people that you've organised, the following 20, 30, 40, 50 conferences. For us now, it's sort of in the, several hundreds of different conferences across every perceivable industry and every size, from 100 people up to almost 5,000 people. So it's very much the proof is in the pudding, and you really need to demonstrate that you've got those relationships, you understand the process, how to take a concept, really, because people start with an idea and a concept, and you've got to, anywhere from 12 to 24 or 36 months in some instances to turn just a concept and an idea into a tangible event that's attracting up to a few thousand people. So certainly having that reputation. We found it difficult in the early days, being the new kid on the block, and then you're competing with there was, a handful of other suppliers at that stage who were fairly mature and had been in business for a while and basically had the market. So we were trying to penetrate as a new player, so it wasn't easy.
So what do you think was different then about what your business was actually providing in the market?
Well, I'm not sure in terms of how we were different. I think we were a fresh face. We were another option. And, none of those companies who I was competing with then are still actually in business. So they may have been at that point in the cycle where they were wanting to, after 10 more years or whatever, they're wanting to exit. In fact, one of my competitors, when she decided she'd had enough, she actually gave me, half a dozen of her clients that she just didn't want to manage any further. So we still manage one of those conferences that we got, and that was probably 10 years ago. So I think we're a new face, probably price. You had to distinguish yourself somehow, and price was how we did it back then.
It's a big jump, though, from you to now 19 people and 20 years down the track. And you're talking really long lead times, aren't you, to make this happen? It's a slow momentum.
That's right. Often, we do work in very long lead times. So we have a number of conferences on the books now for 2020, for example, that we won maybe 12, 18 months ago. So some of these planning processes can take 3 to 4 years. And then if you actually say the Bureau actually bidding for events, that can be a 9 and 10 year process, because you usually get knocked back a few times before you get a successful win. So, but from a planning perspective, you're usually looking, probably 36 months maximum out. And then we've got some accounts, sort of government departments, for example, that get funding and get the initiative to go, and you've got 6 weeks or 2 to 3 months. So we're working at every end of the scale here.
A lot of your business is interstate, in fact, even sometimes overseas, from what I understand.
The way that works is you'll often start with a client who has a local connection, and that's why we're appointed in the first place. But the thing about organising a conference is that once you understand the mechanics of that event and the particular sort of idiosyncrasies of that delegate and of that client, the client doesn't want to reinvent the wheel every time. So usually, you get through that teething period and you develop a rapport and an understanding of what it is that they're looking for. So people value that relationship and value that understanding. So they want you to work with them when they move, when they rotate around Australia or sometimes even offshore. So that's where relationships are critical in this industry, and you need to really develop those relationships and rapport to be successful.
You've had some great successes. What do you feel when you're standing there and you're watching the International Aeronautical Conference unfold in front of you? Was that the biggest thing you've ever delivered?
Yes, it was. And I guess that's probably been the pinnacle event for us because of the complexity of that particular event, the time frame. It was a 36-month plus planning period. That there was so much resting on that. I mean, as a result of that conference, Australia's developing its own space agency. So the legacy impacts of that particular event were huge. So we knew how important that conference was as a springboard to develop all these industries, certainly for Australia. I mean, South Australia has a growing industry in that defence and aerospace sector as well. So it was really the conference provided a great legacy opportunity for our local industries, but also for the schools. And we had several hundred school children actually come through the conference as well, the Congress, and to help develop that interest in science and space and to broaden their horizons, I think was fantastic as well.
How do you think the conference sector has evolved in South Australia since you started out?
The biggest changes and what's really pushing our industry forward, and interstate, they talk about South Australia and the work of the Convention Bureau extremely positively, and we're a bit of the envy of some of the other states because of our centre, for example, as a key structural facility, but also we have a bid fund. So we actually have money that's made available under certain criteria, and under it's not just available to everybody, but if you meet the criteria. The combination of having the bid fund plus the quality of our newly opened and renovated convention centre, which is first rate, and then just the layout of the city along North Terrace, the hotels, whilst we need to keep reinvesting in the hotels to keep them competitive. In terms of location and proximity, you can't get a better mix than Adelaide. So I've seen some changes obviously through the course of time that have meant that we're able to pitch for and bid and win bigger conferences than we were 10, 15 years ago. And also I think as the world changes, environmental security and political stability become critical factors at this point in time. And so Australia is a very safe and nice place to come. And I think with IAC, for example, we exceeded targets, and the previous two destinations were Israel and were Mexico. So suddenly along comes Adelaide in very stable, safe, secure Australia, and the numbers just went through the roof. The international attendance, over 50% of those attendees were international. So we had huge contingents of delegates from the US, for example, and from Europe, who may not have attended the previous destinations because of security issues. So people's sense of security, I guess, and trust in where they're going to has become more important, and that's shaping our industry.
Clearly, you're a passionate South Australian as well. Your business is still centred here, and you seem to be putting your money where your mouth is too. You've got a staff member who, if I'm reading the description correctly from your website, is to continually further develop South Australia as a premier business events destination. So you've got a very clear focus on that.
Yes, I am a proud South Australian, born and bred here in South Australia, and have witnessed the growth of our industry and the changes within our city, over the years. And we definitely support any new initiatives or any developments that see our convention and tourism industry growing and prospering. In fact, we have a couple of clients where we have agreed to provide some financial support to them, I guess, in order to get them established and to get this moving, because we're backing ourselves and we have a lot of confidence in the product and confidence in ourselves to deliver. So Yes, I think that opportunities to see more events come to South Australia are critical, because the spin-on effect, obviously, for the job market, I mean, and the return, the knock-on effect and the spend that, say, an international delegate, the impact they have on our local economy, from the retail sector, to the food and beverage, the shopping, the tourism, Kangaroo Island, McLaren Vale, the wineries and so forth. It's far more lucrative than your average tourist. That business events traveller really does sort of open their wallet and spend in terms of quality accommodation and the eating out and the retail aspect as well. So it's a great catalyst for further economic growth.
You don't operate in a microcosm though, because you're also on the board of the Adelaide Convention Bureau. You're also a counsellor for the Professional Conference Organisers Association. So how important is that in terms of developing the sector and achieving those economic outcomes you just mentioned?
Yeah, look, I think I've been with both of those two associations now for quite some time, and my role with the Convention Bureau, I really value being at the table and having the input there, because I think it's important to bring a sense of balance to that board. I have a lot of practical, technical, hands-on know-how of this industry and how conventions work and how to attract people to conventions and how to make them, financially successful. And I think I bring that level of detail and understanding of the process to that board. And so we have a good mix of different skills, and I think I'm a crucial part of that. So I've really enjoyed working with Damien and his team and the rest of the staff. I mean, we've been instrumental through that development of the bid fund, and plus a number of other initiatives that have really seen our state prosper, and having the close relationship with the Convention Centre representatives on that board as well, I think is important. As for the PCO Association, that's a great forum for education and for sharing and knowledge building, and I really value the time I get to spend with my interstate colleagues, and we share ideas and we share business practices, and it's a good, open, trustworthy group. I think they're doing great things to build the reputation of our industry and of professional conference organisers, and to train and to bring up the standards, and they have an accreditation program that's really developed. We're doing this for the benefit of the industry, and because we want quality conferences.
All Occasions Group's about to turn 20, a significant milestone. Where do you see the organisation in 10 years' time?
Well, I'm too young to retire, so sometimes I think that would be nice, but unfortunately I'm not quite at that point yet. So I think I'm hoping to really continue to grow our organisation. There's a lot of, we have a really healthy pipeline of work confirmed, certainly out to 2020. We've just secured some great global congresses that have been won to Adelaide, a lot of the work through the Convention Bureau and the Convention Centre. So we continue to build our relationship as the preeminent and predominant PCO based in South Australia, with a large team that the client can rely upon to deliver. But yeah, I certainly see us as a key player, and we have a facility now, recently purchased and renovated facility down here at Theberton, and so we've got plenty of room for expansion, which is positive. So yeah, I think we'll continue to be a key player, certainly locally, and also with what we're doing nationally on, say, with the PCO Association and at other roundtable discussions. I think we're helping to make sure that South Australia is heard, South Australia has a voice, South Australia is included at those discussions nationally about the business events industry, and also I think opportunities for young people. We need to keep our young people in the state, so we work with the TAFE College and some of the schools to actually make sure that we're offering programs and opportunities for students. We're also involved, we're going to be taking on an Indigenous workplace student as well, to ensure that, because this is to do with our work with the WIPSI Congress that we've secured for 2020. Yeah, so it's giving back a bit to the industry, I think, is important, and helping to ensure the sustainable growth of what we've got here in South Australia, because we have a great product, a great service. And, Team Adelaide is, we've heard the term used before, but it is quite critical, and it does play out really nicely.
Anne-Marie Quinn, Managing Director of All Occasions Group, thank you very much for joining us in the Events On Air studio, and all the best of the road ahead. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Drew. Appreciate it.